Thank you very much. I want to thank the Overseas Press Club for the invitation to speak today. I would especially like to thank Sonia Fry, the executive director of the club, for organizing this event. I'll speak for about 25 minutes before taking questions, and hopefully there'll be a discussion. I'd like to talk today about how Americans, particularly young Americans, don't follow the news. And I'd like to talk about how a tuned-out electorate affects our democracy and our place in the world. It's been about a week since the election, and already there's been a lot of speculation about civic engagement and young people and news consumption. The first thing we learned is that the percentage of young people who voted did actually rise slightly. In the 18 to 30 crowd, about 40% voted in the 2000 election. Now it's about 50%. So I think that's really good news. The overall percentage of 18 to 30-year-olds, percentage of the electorate as a whole, stayed exactly the same at 17%. And young people split their vote. About 45% voted for Bush and 54% voting for Kerry. So it was the young people didn't have the effect on the election that especially Kerry supporters had hoped. The second thing that we have learned about the election, and the thing that's been talked about a lot, is that Republicans won on values. And I think this is not true. It's true that about 22% of Americans polled say that moral values was their central issue. And most of those folks voted for Bush. But I think a more significant number is this. Half of all Americans say that the war in Iraq has made us safer. Half of all Americans still believe that Saddam is responsible for 9/11, even though Bush and his administration has admitted that no tie exists. 70% of Bush supporters believe there's a clear link between Saddam and Al-Qaeda. 85% of Bush supporters say that the Iraq war is going well. More than because of values, I think Bush won because many people were uninformed. This is not to say that Kerry supporters were all informed. Did all Kerry supporters add up the social programs that he was proposing, the universal health care, and the implications of middle-class tax cut? Well, no. But on the Bush side, I think that the connections in this case are very clear. So I'm going to talk today, though, about an even bigger issue than one election. I'm going to talk about the decades-long decline in news consumption. This election, I think, is just a taste of what a tuned-out America can feel like. The post-Soviet era leaves us with one superpower. All power needs to be checked, whether it's Democratic power or Republican power. So what's the check on the presidency? In this case, the presidency is not fully checked by a Congress because the Congress, both houses of Congress, share the same party as the president. The Supreme Court has served as somewhat of a check on presidential power. Recently, the Supreme Court has said that American citizens, including Jose Padilla and Yasser Hamdi, cannot be held indefinitely without charges. So the Supreme Court has served as somewhat of a check. But ultimately, who is the ultimate check? It's us. It's you and me. We are the ultimate check on presidential power and on any governmental power. It's an informed citizenry informed by a free and aggressive press. We individually and collectively are an important part of the government. It's a sense of ownership, I think, that we really need to foster in all Americans, particularly in young Americans. And I'll tell you a quick story. I was in Montpelier, Vermont. I live in Burlington, Vermont. And in Montpelier, Montpelier is an interesting state capital. I think it's the only state capital without a McDonald's of all 50. And it's also the only state capital without a security guard. So you can actually walk in to the Capitol building and go into the Senate chambers, go into the House chambers, and there's no security guard. So I was walking with my 7-year-old son a few months ago, and I was holding his hand, and he was getting very nervous, and he was holding my hand tighter and tighter, and he said, "Dad, I don't think we're allowed in here." And I said, "Don't worry." And he said, "I really don't think we're allowed in here." So I said, "Okay, I'll ask a guard." Of course, there's no guard. So I said, so we finally saw someone. I think it was a young man who was a senator, state senator. And I said to him, "Sir, is it okay for me and my son to be in this building?" And he said something which is so beautiful. He said, "Of course you can be here. It's your house." And I think it's very beautiful. I hope he will think it's beautiful too. I keep on repeating the story enough, so I'm sure that one day he'll realize the beauty of it. There's a sense of ownership that I think that we need to instill. It's our house, it's our Vermont, it's our New York, it's our America. That part of this whole equation about why young people aren't following the news is a sense that they don't take ownership over their house.